I've been making YouTube videos for exactly 1 year now. And I also have a demanding full-time job along with family responsibilities. As a new creator, I realized there wasn't much good information out there on what realistic progress and growth looks like for someone doing YouTube part-time with zero experience. I've learned a fair amount since starting and figured I would share my experience, data, and results for anyone else out there who is working on or thinking about YouTube but has life circumstances that prevent it from being a full-time gig. To kick things off and set some context, I am 100% a YouTube amateur. I have zero experience in anything video or film related, so writing, filming, editing, all completely new to me. This is my first channel ever. I've definitely never had a secret channel or a channel growing up or anything like that. I don't personally know a single person in real life who does YouTube, so no one I could turn to for questions or help with this whole process. Also, and this is a big one for me and maybe a bit of a generational thing, I have never, absolutely never been in front of a camera before, nor have I done any meaningful form of public speaking. All that is to say, I started YouTube about as inexperienced as is humanly possible. Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into this timeline and start right at the beginning. I started this channel last year, 2023, on January 2nd. For anyone who really likes keeping data and timelines as clean as possible. I'm recording this on January 2nd of 2024, so exactly 1 year later. You may notice that this video is published at least a few weeks after January 2nd. Although if I'm being totally honest here, it was probably published way closer to like the end of February. This is actually completely intentional, and we'll get into why I think that time lag is absolutely critical as we get further into this video and how my YouTube process has evolved over time. So while I started this channel on January 2nd, you may have already realized that my first video came out on February 20th, which is more than a month and a half later. Why such a big gap? I needed to learn the bare minimum of how to write a script and how to shoot and edit videos. Writing a script actually ended up being not that bad. I would honestly, maybe it's a little bit silly, but I would just sit at my computer, speak aloud, and then take the words that I was saying aloud and write them word for word into a Google Doc, and that would be my script. I wasn't really sure how much to write and how what I wrote would translate into video length, so I literally just Googled, how long is my script, pasted my entire script into the first link I saw there, and then just made sure that my video length was in that sweet spot of 7 to 15 minutes long, which seemed like the standard for YouTube. For how I write, with line breaks between paragraphs, this translated about 3 pages into 8 to 10 minutes of video length, which has actually stayed fairly consistent even a year later. Shooting and editing videos, on the other hand, was much harder. I figured I needed a few things. A place to actually record video, something to record video with, something to hold that recording device level and steady so we weren't looking at video like this, and a software to edit. I'm a firm believer that whenever you're starting something new, spending a lot of money on gear seems like a requirement, but it actually isn't. I messed around with a few different options and eventually settled on my fireplace as the place to record because I felt like it had nice framing, my phone as the video recording device, a ring light / tripod as the thing that was holding my phone level and steady while shooting video, and the free video editing software CapCut, which is made by the same people who make TikTok. I did all of this research on getting started by reading articles and blog posts and watching videos on YouTube. Since I was working full-time, I was squeezing this in on nights and weekends in whatever little small spurts I could. Ideally, I would have published my first video sooner, but all things considered, I think this was actually a super reasonable time frame while still having a life. So I posted my first video, and in the first 24 hours, I got 27 views along with a comment. It plateaued very quickly, probably because it wasn't very good and I was pretty awkward on camera, but I was happy because I had gotten over the hurdle of putting a video out. And at least for one person, they actually watched a fair bit of it. I got 4 subscribers from this basically right after publishing. Admittedly, I think 2 of those were my parents, but also 2 of them weren't. My next 2 videos were fairly similar to my first, which is to say they were about the same level of interesting or lack thereof. Hopefully this one you're watching right now is better, although obviously you can be the judge of that. Unsurprisingly, they also had similarly minuscule view counts and plateaued almost immediately. One real deviation I made from that first video to these second and third videos is I started adding pretty rudimentary transition slides between different topics. I switched things up with video 4, and if I can correctly anticipate where this will go in editing, I made this video. At the time, arguably the most prominent bank for tech startups collapsed, and at the time, I thought I was doing a tech and programming channel, so I figured hopping on the tech news cycle might make sense. This did significantly better than my first 3 videos because it was a timely news event that people wanted to hear about, and it was the first video I had that got over 100 views. But because I was so concerned about timing, I turned around both the filming and editing in less than 48 hours. I worked way too hard, way too quickly on that video, felt the early signs of burnout, and quickly realized that type of breaking news video really wasn't for me. I made 3 videos after that, and then didn't make any more videos for around 4 months. The main reason for that is I personally had some tough life stuff going on, but kind of similarly to that banking video, I'd also just kind of burned myself out. Every piece of advice I'd seen for new creators was that you should be putting out 1 video a week, if not 2. But this was completely unrealistic for me while holding a full-time job. Like the advice I'd seen, I had this whole methodical system. I had a spreadsheet where I had all topics planned out with release dates and links to scripts, and I was putting videos out on a pretty regular, solid cadence, but it was taking up all of my available time, which just was not sustainable at all. Not to mention, because I was so focused on just cranking things out, I didn't have the time or space to reflect on what to change, what was going well, what wasn't going well, and how to actually get better at this whole thing. I also, frankly, needed time to just live my life too. Maybe counterintuitively, taking those 4 months off is actually where things started picking up for me. Right before that break, I had posted a tutorial video on how to remove the background of a picture you take on an iPhone. It was a slow burn in terms of accumulating views, but it kept getting more and more and more, and now it's sitting at 2,105. Which is by far the highest I've ever gotten. I also gained more subscribers from this than every prior video I'd put out on my channel. The funny thing about this video to me was it was fairly low effort. It was less than 2 minutes long, and it only took me about a couple hours total to make the whole thing. What it proved to me though was the importance of delivering value, the importance of delivering it quickly, and delivering it in a way that's easy to understand. I'll make the argument that my first few videos did have some value in them if you dug deep down, but it absolutely was not doing 2 or 3. Also, around this point, I decided to do something about my thumbnails. I realized pretty early on that thumbnails and titles were pretty important. If your thumbnail and title were bad, no one's gonna click on your video and watch it, even if it's the best video ever made. Even though I kind of intuitively understood this whole relationship between thumbnails and people watching your videos, I was having a hard time actually just making good thumbnails, because what felt like good thumbnails in the design tool I was using ended up looking not as nice once I actually published the videos and saw them in the YouTube app itself. I basically wanted a tool that would let me preview my thumbnails without actually publishing a video first. And I found some tools that got kind of close, but they didn't do exactly what I wanted. So I went on a bit of a side quest and just built a tool myself. Maybe some people would argue this was not the best use of my time, but here are my thumbnails before I made that and after I made that. You can judge this yourself, but for me personally, I think this made a night and day difference in my thumbnail quality. Then I decided to make this ChatGPT video. I already had a lot of exposure to and knowledge about ChatGPT since I work in software, and I'd gotten a lot of questions from non-tech people on how to actually use the thing. I decided to combine the lessons I learned from that easy iPhone tutorial video with the higher amount of planning and effort I'd put into my other videos. This video has kind of become my channel's magnum opus, although I would love to dethrone it in the future, maybe with this video. It started off relatively slow, but then about 10 days after I'd published it, it started getting numbers of views that I'd never seen before, like 50 to 100 in a single day. Over time, this has grown to be far and away the main source of views for my entire channel, as well as my number of subscribers. It just recently, at the end of December, crossed 10,000 views, which is way higher than my next best of 2,000, and I think I got like 243 subscribers just from this single video, which is about 85% of the total number of subscribers on my channel. What was really helpful for me was diving into what made this particular video so successful, beyond it just being ChatGPT related. The thumbnail and title, I think, were pretty good and obviously highly related to what was actually happening in the video. The more subtle part though is I wasn't looking directly at the camera. I was looking at my laptop and just recording my screen. Like I said earlier in this video, before I started this whole YouTube thing, I had never, not a single time, talked to the camera before. In this ChatGPT video, I'm clearly so much more relaxed and comfortable for the majority of the video where I'm not looking at the camera at all. Since realizing that difference, I've spent time just sitting in front of my camera and talking to it without recording anything actually, just to normalize it more for me and make it feel honestly just less weird. What really worked for me, and I'm doing this right now as I'm talking to the camera, is pretending instead of talking to a camera, I'm talking to one of my friends. After that ChatGPT video, I truly feel like I reached the perfect balance for doing YouTube part-time. In social media, there's this pressure to constantly be posting. How many times have you heard a creator say, new videos every Sunday and Thursday? But that pressure is completely self-imposed. The YouTube algorithm doesn't care if a video is old. As long as people are still watching it, the algorithm will keep pushing it out to more and more people just like they're doing right now with my ChatGPT video. It's more important to make good videos than it is to make more videos. And particularly if you have other obligations in your life, not only is it okay to take more time, but much better if you actually want to be successful. I've also transitioned completely away from a rigorous spreadsheet and posting schedule. Instead, I have a much more loose system for creating videos, which has worked much better for me in working around my limited time. I'm basically never sitting down and thinking about, oh, what videos do I want to create? And instead, I just go about my daily life. I'll be in the grocery store or admittedly in the bathroom. And if an idea pops in my head, I'll immediately stop what I'm doing, pull out my phone, and then write the topic down and then just brain dump everything in my head. And that process takes about 20 seconds. Friction to getting that idea out of my head is intentionally really, really low. I don't have to open an existing doc and scroll down to the right place. I literally just pull out my phone, open the Docs app, tap on the big plus button for a new document, and then write everything down and then go back to whatever non-YouTube thing I was doing. I then can open the Google Docs app basically whenever I want later, and if an idea seems particularly appealing to me, I'll spend some time on my computer fleshing it out more. This has worked amazingly for me. The number of docs and ideas I have now is way more than the number of videos I could feasibly create, which makes this whole YouTube creative process to me feel a lot more sustainable and something I can continue potentially doing for a long time. As a case in point of moving from quantity to quality, I posted my second to last video of 2023 on October 27th, and then didn't post for a full 2 months. I wasn't just sitting around doing nothing, although I did do some of that. Self-care is important. I had seen an idea I liked in my Google Docs and carefully crafted a title and designed a thumbnail around that I felt were both together pretty compelling. I wrote a script and read it aloud several times and tweaked it until it felt, pretty natural to me. I fixed my mic setup a bit, thanks at Dexter Cool. I put real effort into what I showed on screen besides just my face, and tried to make sure all those things were actually useful as opposed to cheesy stock footage like I'd previously used. It's absolutely not perfect, I'm not going to claim it is, and I know that there are a lot of seasoned creators out there making much better videos than me, but for me, it's far and away the best thing I've ever made. And while I don't want to say that views and likes are everything, they're definitely not. This video has gotten more views and likes in its first few days than any video I've put out in the past, including that ChatGPT one. I don't necessarily expect that performance to hold. I think the video is kind of tied to the time of year and people's interest in New Year's resolutions, but it's at least signaled to me that the changes that I'm making and the improvements are hopefully translating at least a little bit into the final product that you're watching on your end. So that's where I'm at. No hype, just reflections and data. I hope if you've made it this far into the video, that means at least some of what I've been sharing has been interesting to hear and see. My goal with this channel is to continue putting out videos that are useful to you. So if you're feeling kind today and you found this video useful, I would appreciate you liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you're not already, so I can continue making more videos like this. That's all for now. See you next time.